Hi, my name is Lee. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to L4Webdesign. In my last video, I showed you how you can install Polaris and use the front-end style guide from Shopify within your Shopify app. And I showed you how you can create a navigation. But until now, that navigation is not working because we will still need to integrate React Router and integrate it with Laravel, with the routing of Laravel. So that is what I want to show you today. You can also follow along if you're not using Polaris but just want to know how to integrate React Router with Laravel Router. And yeah, let's jump right in. Okay, so this is the state of our app currently. We have the navigation front end installed, but it's not working correctly. So as soon as we click on orders, for example, we will be redirected to a page that is not there yet. That's why we get this 404 error from Laravel. And now we want to fix that. Okay, so let's jump right into VS Code and take a look at what we have so far. If we go here to resources, JS, and take a look at our components, we still have our example component and we have our URLs. Let's just say for the sake of this tutorial, we just want two URLs. One is our regular URL, which was our home, which will be our home directory, and then we will have a second URL. Let's just say we want to have our settings. The label should be settings as well. We're not gonna make we are not gonna need an icon, and we also don't need a badge for now. Just keep it as simple as possible. Let's save this right here. And so we have our example.js. The next thing that I want to do is I want to rename it. I don't want my component to be called example. I want my component to be called index. So I want this to be my index component. So what I want to do is I want to rename it right here. Say index. You can right click and click rename, or you just, if you're on a Mac, you can just go here and press enter and it's gonna let you rename. Then I want to go to a function name and say it's gonna be called index. Let's copy this right here. I'm gonna export this function and it's exported with the name of index. I'm gonna say here document get element by root. That is still the same, and I wanted to render my index component now. Save it. Then I want to go ahead to app.js, and instead of requiring the previous example component, I wanted to require my index component that I just renamed. And what I have to do now is say npm run watch. You can also run npm run dev, but npm run watch will steadily check if you made some changes to your files. So I'm gonna just say npm run watch. Okay, so it has compiled successfully. Let's head over to our Shopify store and see if it is still the same. Should be. And there we can see we still have the same component. It's just now called index.js. Okay, perfect. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to create the components that I will need for my app later on. So I want to create the home component and I want to create my settings component. So I'm going to do that right now. I will create new directories for each component. I'm going to say home, create a new file, say home.js. And if you've installed React Snippets, which is an extension for VS Code, let me just take a look. is it this right here? Yeah, React snippets. You can install this extension for VS Code right here, and if you have that, then you can just type in RFC and it will create this boilerplate code for an React component, functional component for you. So I'm gonna just say hi from home component, just so later on we will know that it works. We will care about the styling later. And I also want a settings component. Now I put it into the wrong directory. I want to put it in here. Okay, so I got the settings right here. I'm gonna say settings.js. I'm gonna type RFC again. And I'm gonna say hi from settings component. There we go. All right, so we got our two components set up. Let's see what we have to do next. I want to create a new directory which will have the purpose of routing. So I will create a new folder right here, and I'm gonna call it routing. And I will now set up my routing, my React router. So I'm gonna just create a new file called routes.js. I'm gonna say RFC again. Just type in routes right here, and I will have to install an npm package, React router. So I'm gonna say npm I React router. Now that I have installed React router, I can now define my routes within this component right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and say I will keep this inside of a div, put it all into the next row. I will say first I will have to import route from React router. And I will now define my route, which will have the path that we've defined before. One path will just be a slash. And I will have this home component. And you can see that VS Code will auto import my home component that I previously set up. So I can just click enter and close this component right here. Next route will be my settings route. So I can say route and give it a path of settings, and I will import my settings. VS Code will also auto import my settings component, close it, and we are done with the routes. All right, perfect. So let's take a look at what we have done so far. We've got our index.js, which has this app provider and the navigation. We have our component, we have our home component, our settings component. We have our routes file, which will define the routes in our app with React router. And we have this app.js file, which imports this index file and then compiles everything down with the help of Webpack. That is unnecessary right now. But I want to point your attention to this navigation file, this navigation component right here, because that is a Polaris component, and to be honest, Polaris doesn't have the best documentation, so it can be kind of mind-boggling to install this navigation right here. I certainly had some issues with it, but I'm trying to show you how kind of how things work or how they want things to work. So if you go ahead and if you go over to the navigation documentation from Shopify Polaris, you can see that they tell you that the navigation component is used within a frame of an application. And let's go over to the frame and take a look what that is. Here we have the frame component. So the whole app should be within that frame, and the navigation only works within that frame right here. And how that should be set up, you can see a code example right here. And if we go down to the bottom, you can see right here we have the frame component, and the navigation will be a prop for the frame component. So the frame component accepts a React prop as a child. All right, so we're gonna have to refactor our code again a little bit, and so that the navigation will be part of the frame component for it to work. So let's go back to VS Code. Here we are again, and what I want to do right now is I want to go ahead to the routing directory and create a new file. I'm gonna call this new file our app frame.js. Say RFC again, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to load my frame component inside of here, and I will give this frame component the prop called navigation, and I'm gonna say curly brackets, and I will say navigation markup, just like they did in the documentation. Now we don't have the navigation markup yet, but we can create it. So let us create the navigation markup, and we have to give it a React component. We can copy that React component from our index.js where we created the navigation already. So let's head over to index.js and let us just cut out this navigation component that we have right here. I'm gonna say Command X, cut this out, go back to my app frame, and I will now paste it inside of here. So let us save this, and now we have created this frame with our navigation markup. Of course, we have cut out the component from index.js, so I want to import it again, and I will have to say, let's see if it will auto import. Open this bracket right here and say app frame, and it will actually auto import my app frame as well. All right, let's save this. So what have we done? We have kind of refactored it. We have put the navigation that used to be here and put it inside of our app frame.js, and used the navigation markup and gave this navigation markup to our frame component as a prop. I know this might be a little bit confusing, but that's just the way that Shopify wants us to use their Polaris app. And so that's what we have so far. Basically, what we've done until now is we just refactored everything. We cut out some code here and put it into another component. We wrapped it inside of the frame component, gave it a prop, and yeah, basically what we've done now is just some refactoring. So let's take a look at our changes, and nothing should have changed. We're gonna say npm run watch. Okay, it compiled successfully. Let's go back to our Shopify app. I will hit a refresh, and it should stay the same. And as we can see, I messed up. All right, now let's see where that error comes from. What's happening? Navigation is not defined in app frame. Let's go back to app frame. And all right, I did not import my navigation component because I just copy and pasted it and did not import it. So let's import it, save the file, and I will go back to my Shopify app again. Take a look, refresh, and there we go. Okay, so everything is working, and we can continue with the development of our app. All right, so let's continue with that. Let's go back to VS Code. Okay, now what is missing here is we didn't pass our app the routes that we have previously set. So in this component, we define the routes and the components that the app is routing to, but in our app, we haven't registered them within our app. That's why we can pass some children to our frame component right here, and we can just tell them, hey, use those routes that we've defined before. I can type in routes, and VS Code will be kind enough to auto import it for us. And also if I save it, it will just give me those brackets right here. And now I have registered those routes within my app frame right here. But we are not done yet, because we still have to use the BrowserRouter, React BrowserRouter in our app. So our app has to be wrapped inside of the BrowserRouter. Yeah, you can read that inside of the React Router documentation. I don't want to go too far into React Router documentation. I will leave a link in the description so you can read it yourself, but still you need to use the BrowserRouter. Nonetheless, there's no way around it. All right, so let's say BrowserRouter, let us auto import it again, and cut this, put it inside of here, save it, and now we have the BrowserRouter installed as well. You might see something, I just read that in the documentation of Shopify, so I want to put it inside of here as well. We need a prop called I18 and give it some translations. Say en translations. I'm not exactly sure why this is necessary, but I will just show you. You can import it here and say en translations from it's from Shopify Polaris locales en.json. Okay, so now we have our app with our frame inside of our index file. In here we have this frame component. We will pass it some props with our navigation markup. We will also pass it our routes that we have defined before. We all put it in an app provider, which is necessary from Shopify Polaris. Everything has to be inside of an app provider, and our whole app needs to be wrapped inside of the browser router in order for React router to work. I know it's Inception, but you will get used to it. Okay, so yeah, actually it should work now. So our React app should work, but I think if I go back to my Shopify app, I will still get an error. Let us try it. Okay, we'll say hi from home component. If I go to settings, I should get a 404. All right, I will get a 404 because we're inside of a Laravel app. And I set a route inside of my React app. I set a route to /settings. So that will tell Laravel, hey, go to the route settings, but Laravel doesn't know that route settings. So we will have to tell Laravel, hey, and it doesn't matter which route we will go to, we will always have to come back to our welcome page. So no matter where we are pointing to, always go back to the welcome page. And that is the last step that we have to do right now. All right, so let's go back to our VS Code and fix that really quick. Back at my VS Code, I will open my web.php with Command P. Look for web.php where all of the routes are defined. You can see here that if we hit just the regular /route, we will return the welcome view, which then loads up our React app, and then we will go to React Router, and React Router will point us to home component. That's why we saw hi from home component. But we haven't set up any route for settings. We don't want to say /, but we want to give it curly brackets. And say path. And that should be it. Let's save it and check it out again. All right, that is strange. let me see what's happening here. All right. Okay, I'm back at it again. So I found the problem. The problem was that I just said here that I wanted to have a path, a wildcard path, but I always have to set this / right here as my path, so that it will know, okay, always go to the welcome view. But if you type in anything, or if you direct to anywhere else, then there's home, or yeah, just / directory, also go to the welcome view. So that is all you have to do right here. You just have to type in those two routes, and then you will always get to the correct route. What you also have to do is in your routes file right here, always type in exact for the route, at least for this just / route, so it will always point you to the right route. What you also still have to do is you have to go to your app frame, take a look at your location, because right now we have a problem. I want to go back here and I want to show you the problem. Here, if you go to settings, you are on the right component, but this navigation will show you that you're at the wrong component. That is because if we go back here, the location is always set to our home directory. But what we want to do is we want to set this to location dot path name. All right, and we also want to give this right here another property, and it should be called exact match, and we will give it true. Is that right? No, it's not right. We just give it true, and I'm gonna copy that, and I will also give this right here a true. And of course this is an object, so I will have to give it a colon, and I have to give it a colon right here. Save it. Now it shouldn't return an error anymore. All right, it compiled successfully. Now let's take a look at our Shopify app. Refresh the whole thing. Now the moment of truth. Let's take a look. Here we have hi from app component. Now let's switch over to settings. And we have hi from settings, and this settings right here is activated as well. So I can now switch between pages. I can switch between components, and that is what we wanted. Now we have that functionality as well. So I hope you could learn something from this tutorial. I certainly had a hard time learning this and figuring out what to do with it, but yeah, I hope this is it has been informative to you. And in the next video we will just always step by step further develop this app right here. If this video was helpful or informative to you, please leave us like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.